Alright, Devlog 4 is done, it's May, the caddisfly theme is pretty much wrapped up. Time to start working on the next theme. So that's a boss, 3 to 4 enemies, a handful of rooms to make, maybe another quick polish pass over some of the textures I've got, finalize the logo so I can finally announce the actual name of my game, and it's probably about time to start adding some sound effects. Oh, wait, my playtesters are speedrunning now? Well, okay then. The actual name for my game is picked. The logo is mostly done, I just need a bit more time to get it wrapped up, so for maybe not the last time, this is the 5th devlog for my roguelike deck-building twin-stick shooter temporarily living under the name CardCrawler. So yeah, this month I had some plans and I did get a fair amount of them done. But between all the sidetracks and the lateness of my last video, and the fact that a lot of the changes that I did make were more under the hood, kind of less visible stuff, it does sort of feel like I didn't accomplish much this month. Oh well. Summer's coming, and with it family trips, which means it probably won't be the last short devlog I ever make. It is what it is. So first, the more boring stuff. As I mentioned in my last devlog, I spent some time right away doing a lot of cleanup from the last update. I fixed some enemies getting stuck on walls, I reworked the caddisfly drone AI to make them a bit more interesting, I fixed a bug where double-clicking on a room on the map would just crash the game, I hopefully fixed an issue where killing the last 2 enemies of a wave in the same exact frame would just skip the next wave. It was a bunch of real fun stuff. It is always a bit of a mixed bag here, because as much as I know I'd rather be diving into the new stuff, I also know it's good to get this stuff cleaned up as I go, and I do really appreciate the time that my playtesters are putting into helping me improve things. It's really humbling to see people playing with and getting excited about something that I've made. The game is much better for them having played, and I do want to make sure that I show that appreciation by addressing the things that they find quickly. But there is always that little voice that watches issue reports flow in one after the other and ends up pouting in the corner, whining about how implementing new features sounds like more fun than fixing old ones. That's just the life of a software developer, I think. In a similar vein, I also put some time into some slight balancing. The caddisfly grubs shot webs too quickly and had too much health, so it was a bit of a slog whenever they appeared in a room. So I made them fire slower, have less health, and overall appear in smaller groups. I'm feeling like I want to make each floor smaller on the whole, or reduce the need to scrape every single corner of every floor to stay viable, so I made the black market offer 5 cards instead of 3, so that you could visit less if you wanted. I felt like the stamina bar for dashing was unneeded, so I removed it. Dash is now only limited by a cooldown timer. Compared to the new, faster-paced game with the smaller rooms, the boss felt way too easy and slow, so I ramped up her speed and the number of eggs she lays, and made both increase more as her health gets lower. I also spent like a week specifically chasing a few issues with her AI. I think she's going to need a full rewrite at some point, maybe add some new abilities and attacks and features. I feel like she's just a bit underwhelming compared to the higher standard of all of the other enemies in the game at this point, but that's alright. All in good time. Finally, and this gets important here in a minute, I added a run timer, and I asked my testers to start reporting their run time whenever they manage to get to the boss, win or lose, so that I can start to get a feel for how long a full 3-floor run is going to last. Little did I know. Finally, I tweaked a few art things, mostly just making the highlights and shadows a bit more consistent in a few places, but I also added some particles and cranked up the contrast on the stone card and the projectile for it because I got a complaint that it was a bit hard to read. I think there's going to be more of that in particular as I go forward because each theme is going to have a different colored floor, so that's something to keep looking out for. For the first week and a half after the art rework, with the new enemies and everything, I was starting to get a bit concerned. General feedback on everything was good, but no one had yet managed to beat the boss, and here I am balancing her to be harder? Then, suddenly, out of nowhere, the victory screenshots started pouring in, and along with them, some more speedrun-centric requests. Like, I think the timer doesn't pause correctly when you pause the game, can you look into that? Or, is there a way to look at my deck and the layout of the dungeon after a run ends? Or, do you have plans to implement seeded runs so that we can compare apples to apples? I mean, I did have other plans for this month, but who am I to say no in the face of such enthusiasm? So fast forward another week, and the game is now much more speedrun friendly. Map layout, room placement, enemy encounters, room rewards, and shop offerings are all determined by a single seed, which can be randomized or input manually by the player, meaning that you and your friend can compare times much more competitively, given that you both had the same exact starting point. I plan to implement a high score list at some point, although I haven't decided yet if I'll let you search that for every run ever, searching by seed, or just have one seed of the week that you can run with a global leaderboard where you can put up times, complete with a quick overview of what cards you had, how many rooms you cleared, etc. In the meantime, I've made sure that you can review the map after a completed run, see what cards were in your deck as well as your final time and the seed you ran with, so that you can send a screenshot to challenge someone or just share a cool layout that you found. With all that, I did still manage to find a bit of time for new stuff. I spent way more time than was necessary learning to animate flames so that I could do this cool new energy display. It might feel excessive or unneeded, but I'm finding myself leaning more and more into the motif of a blue flame representing the energy you use to play the cards, and it's probably going to be a bit of a recurring theme going forward, so it's probably fine to spend time getting better at it. Along with the energy flame, I cleaned up the UI on the whole, added in some extra icons and textures, improved the animation for cards moving around and playing, added a cool burn effect when you burn a card, note the cool blue flames here again, and on the suggestion of a tester, I tilted the cards in your hand at an angle so that it's easier to see what's there when you have a very full hand. And finally, I laid the groundwork for something that's going to be super important going forward: themes. As I've mentioned in the past, the vision is for a single run to include probably 3 different bosses, each with their own themed enemies and environment. That means I need a way to assign each floor a theme so that it can generate the correct visuals, boss, and enemies. In addition to that, I worry kind of a little bit about the repetitive feeling of fighting the same enemies for 10 to 20 minutes on an average to slow run as you move across the floor. I could just increase the number of unique enemies in each theme, but I only have so much time if I'm going to make my release date goal, so instead I came up with the idea of wandering encounters. Wandering encounters can be best described like so. Imagine you're fighting your way through the Caddisfly Temple, and you encounter a patrol of goblins who are also here looking for treasure, or to fight the queen, or trying to clear out the temple, or whatever. They don't belong here, but finding them here I think makes sense, and it lends some nice variety to the entire thing. So I just have an extra set of enemy encounters which can spawn randomly on any floor, regardless of theme. But now I have to make some enemies to fill out those encounters. Then here's my real genius moment. I had the idea to start implementing some of the new enemies for the new theme, and just use them temporarily as my wandering enemies. It's a win-win-win. I get out of making wandering enemies right this second, I get a chance to test out some of the new enemies for the new theme right now, and you get another brief spoiler of the new theme. I see no downsides, just as long as you come back to see what the next theme is, hopefully next month, but no promises. You know how these things go. Thanks for watching.